Chapter 123. Space. Looking at the careful and vigilant opponent in front of him, Kang Chon's face was very grave. He suddenly realized something. Facing a powerful Jidan stage flare powerhouse, once after the heaven breaking, was useless. He would have to rely on the heaven escaping hand. In the end, his means were still too few. However, Emperor Dan didn't think so. He laughed and scolded. "Kid, you have to know that there is too much of a difference between your opponent and your cultivation. If it was a person of the same generation, your hegemony fist and heaven breaking would be enough." Emperor Dan was right. The main thing was that Kang Chon's current cultivation was too low. Facing increasingly powerful opponents, Kang Chon's cultivation at the 9th level of Foundation Establishment was no longer enough. To use the 9th level of Foundation Establishment cultivation to fight against a strong person at the 9th level of Jidan. I'm afraid that Kang Chon is the only one in the past and present. Looks like we have to break through the Jidan stage quickly. A bitter smile appeared on Kang Chon's face. The Jidan stage was the temple of a cultivator, and only when one stepped into the Jidan stage could one be considered a true cultivator. The Foundation Establishment stage, on the other hand, could only be considered the apprentice level of a cultivator, which was no longer suitable for Kang Chon's current strength. Yes, once you step into the Jidan stage, you brat is a dragon out of the shallow abyss, and from then on, you'll be able to roam the skies and get out of hand. Emperor Dan said smilingly. This day is not far off. We will leave Demon Yuan City tonight. A trace of scorching heat flashed in Kang Chon's eyes. He was very eager for the nodal stage, because stepping into the nodal stage would allow him to dash in the sky. It's better to settle your immediate opponent first. He seems to be impatient. The Dan Emperor's laughter came from the opposite side of the room. Zhongli's 9th brother had become a little impatient when he saw that Kang Chon was delayed in making a move and had begun to test his attacks. Since that's the case, then let them see the power of the heaven escaping hand. Kang Chon laughed coldly as his body flickered, dodging his opponent's attack. Immediately, he slashed out horizontally, the blazing blade, emitting a whimpering sound in the air, causing monstrous waves of air to curl up all around him. Zhongli's 9th brother didn't dare to be careless, as he was concerned about the heaven tackling hand. He stayed far away from Kang Chon and utilized his flying sword to fight Kang Chon. It had to be said that compared to a Jidan stage powerhouse, Kang Chon was much worse in terms of long-range attacks. HMPH. Heaven escaping hand. Looking at such a cautious opponent, Kang Chon knew that it wouldn't work if he didn't perform the heaven tackling hand, so he slashed out his sword and took advantage of his opponent, resisting his sword's awnings to swiftly bully his way closer. And then he let out a low shout. Instantly, above Zhongli's 9th brother's head, a huge golden palm tore through the void and came out, instantly suppressing down towards him. At this instant, Zhongli's 9th brother felt his breath almost stagnant. He looked unbelievably at the golden palm that descended down. He was obviously careful and vigilant in his surroundings, but he was still unable to detect the sudden appearance of the heaven escaping hand. Could it be that the words of those old generation powerhouses had really come true? The heaven escaping hand was truly invincible. At the time when he was shocked in his heart, the golden-colored giant palm had already tightly grasped him. Instantly the huge power squeezed, making his whole body feel intense pain, and his bones seemed to be shattering. This is the legendary heaven escaping hand, Hegemony King's famous masterstroke. Rumor has it that once the heaven escaping hand comes out, the world is invincible. This divine ability is truly terrifying. The crowd watching the battle exclaimed in shock. This scene was very shocking. Even those few Yuanying stage powerhouses were shocked. They didn't realize when the heaven escaping hand appeared. No wonder Shen Chiji retreated earlier with such a move. Who amongst his peers can resist? The crowd could not help but think of the earlier battle between Kang Chon and Shen Chiji. Shen Chiji did not lose the battle but retreated after the fourth sword. Obviously, he knew that Kang Chon had the masterstroke of the heaven escaping hand, and knew that he would not be able to defeat him, so he retreated. Firstly, 20% of the realm's intent. Then the heaven escaping hand. Jia's loss was not unjust. A hint of awe flashed in Shen Tehong's eyes. If this son steps into the Jidan stage, it is truly unimaginable. Yun Baishan also revealed a look of shock, and the two Yun family sisters beside him were both staring at the battle in the arena with bright eyes. HMPH. It's not until the end. It's still uncertain who will lose and who will win, Zhonglai sneered. He was right, even though the heaven escaping hand was very subtle. A Jidan 9th layer powerhouse was after all extraordinary, and after Zhongli's 9th brother sacrificed his own inner Dan, the golden giant palm instantly burst into pieces, from which he escaped in a sorry state. Heaven escaping hand. Looking at Zhongli's 9th brother, who escaped from the top of his inner Dan, Kang Chon wasn't the slightest bit surprised. He knew that the heaven tackling hand couldn't trap a 9th layer Jidan powerhouse, so he immediately cast the heaven tackling hand once again and grabbed Zhongli's 9th brother, who had just escaped from the top of his inner Dan. Once again being grabbed by the golden giant palm, Zhongli's 9th brother felt incomparably sad and angry. This battle was too depressing. He was completely passive. He could do nothing in the face of the heaven tackling hand. He could only rely on his powerful strength to shatter it. Crumble for me. Zhongli's 9th brother roared, his golden-colored giant palm bursting into pieces. As he topped off his 9-layer Jidan stage inner Dan, exuding incomparably powerful strength as he killed against Kang Chon. He knew that to hide any longer was completely asking for shame. Good timing, heaven breaking. Seeing this, Kang Chon was not shocked, but delighted as he raised his long black blade and met Zhongli's 9th brother, and the two of them fought fiercely. However, the result was obvious. Facing a 9th level Jidan stage powerhouse, Kang Chon was immediately at a disadvantage and was beaten dangerously. If he hadn't performed the heaven breaking hand at a critical moment, he would have been defeated long ago. As for Zhongli's 9th brother, he was depressed. Every time he was about to defeat Kang Chon, he was grabbed by the heaven tackling hand and then slammed into the ground fiercely. And then Kang Chon's blade slashes came, immediately putting him in an absolutely passive situation. Kid, going on like this is not a solution. His power is too much stronger than yours. Your attacks are useless against him, unless you keep casting heaven escaping hand, but with your current true essence. It's impossible to cast heaven escaping hand all the time, or else your true essence will run out, and you will be the one who loses the battle. After half a second of intense fighting, Emperor Dan's voice came out. Kang Chon frowned. He also found this embarrassing situation, but there was nothing he could do. If the star-absorbing technique is performed in conjunction with the heaven escaping hand, and his inner Dan is devoured, then it will be fine. But with so many people here, it would be better if you don't perform the star-absorbing technique. Emperor Dan also frowned. Kang Chon was depressed in his heart. He had thought that he could easily earn these 10 extreme spirit stones, but where did he think that first Shen Taji had popped up? And then he was battling against this Jidan stage flare powerhouse in front of him. They were really one more powerful than the other. Forget it. The big deal is that I admit defeat. But even if I admit defeat, I won't let them Zhong family have a good time. Humph. Kang Chon thought about it. He still felt that there was no need to expose the existence of the star-absorbing technique just for the sake of a mere 10 extreme spirit stones. After all, this place was different from the chaotic battles in the Fendu fighting stadium. There was no way for him to evade the detection of those Yuanying stage powerhouses and perform the star-absorbing technique. However, even if he conceded defeat, Kang Chon would not make things easy for the Zhao family. After all, this defeat was all because of the Zhong family's shamelessness. After thinking about it, Kang Chon continued to perform the heaven escaping hand, grabbed Zhongli's ninth brother and smashed it down. He didn't care if he could smash the other party to death, as long as he could get out of breath. Anyway, with his current amount of true essence, it was enough to perform dozens of heaven escaping hands. Even if he couldn't smash the other party to death, he still had to make him suffer a good mess. In this way, a scene that left the crowd dumbfounded suddenly appeared in the field. Zhongli's ninth brother was constantly caught and smashed down by the golden palm that suddenly appeared, and then caught and smashed down again, and so on, back and forth, after a dozen times. The ground in the arena had been smashed out of a dozen large pits. Everyone stayed as if they were wooden chickens. Their gazes sympathetically looked at the silhouette that was continuously smashed down by the golden giant palm. This guy was really too tragic. A hallowed Jidan stage Flare powerhouse finally ended up in such a situation. Ruyi Zhongli's ninth brother was filled with grief and indignation. This was also too suffocating. He didn't have the chance to fight back at all. Every time he just got up, he was smashed down by the golden giant palms. Although with his strength, the heaven tackling hand only inflicted minor injuries on him. This powerless situation made him very suffocated. The crowd of Zhong clan members who were watching the battle outside the arena all lowered their heads and didn't dare to look. And Zhonglai was also looking at this scene with a gloomy face, his eyes on the verge of bursting into flames. After the Yun family and the Shenta family were surprised, they laughed out loud. This scene was too hilarious. Kang Chon was just standing there constantly executing the heaven tackling hand, smashing Zhongli's ninth brother back and forth, watching the crowd cry and laugh. Stop, I admit defeat. After Kang Chon had executed the 23rd heaven escaping hand, Zhongli's ninth brother, who was filled with grief and anger, yelled at Kang Chon. He just couldn't take the humiliation anymore, and he didn't know what Kang Chon's bottom line was. And if he smashed down again like this, what kind of face would he have to meet people in Demon Yuan City in the future? Kang Chon was dumbfounded by what he said. This was out of his expectation. The other party even admitted defeat, just like that. He looked at Zhongli's ninth brother's face, full of grief and indignation. His heart couldn't help but rise up a wave of shame. Poor Jidan stage 9th layer powerhouse, just like this, was insulted by him. The waves of the Yangtze River pushed forward the waves of the past. I admit defeat, Zhongli's ninth brother said, with a face full of grief and indignation. As he looked at the sympathetic gazes of the surrounding crowd, he simply couldn't wait to find a hole in the ground to burrow into. This battle was just too humiliating. Outside the field, Zhongli's face was full of gloom. His complexion was incomparably ugly. He did not think that his ninth brother had admitted defeat. Although the heavenly escape hand was powerful, he could already see that Kang Chon was about to reach his limit. As long as he held on for a little while longer, Kang Chon was bound to lose. His guess was right. Kang Chon had indeed reached his limit. He only had 10% of his true essence left now. If he slapped out a few more heaven escaping hands, he would run out of his true essence. And by then, his opponent would be able to defeat him with a single finger. But there was no way. Zhongli's ninth brother had conceded defeat in advance. He couldn't stand such a suffocating fight. And in front of so many people, how would he meet people in Demon Yuan City in the future? HMPH, let's go. Zhonglai couldn't stand to watch from over there, and with a cold snort, he led a group of Zhong clan members to leave. They could be considered to have beaten themselves up and lost face this time. Ha ha ha. Brother Zhong, take your time, don't see me off, Yun Baishan laughed. Zhongli's face was filled with darkness, and he stepped into the air without looking back. Kang Chon shook his head with a bitter smile. A great battle had ended like this. It really made people cry. The unlucky one was still Zhongli's ninth brother. Originally, he was already being laughed at for bullying the youngsters. But as a result, he was also smashed by Kang Chon in such a lousy manner. It was estimated that he even had the heart to commit suicide. A accompanied by the departure of a group of Zhong family members. This time's three families' martial meeting drew to a successful conclusion. The Yun family, because of Kang Chon's participation in the battle, achieved the first place, capturing quite a lot of benefits from the Demon Yuan City's workshop market. Of course, Kang Chon also got 10 superb spirit stones as he wished. Both sides were happy with what they got. Cloud Mansion. Kang Chon bid farewell to a group of Yun family members, and after getting the 10 extreme spirit stones, he was ready to head to the imperial capital. Yun Baishan frowned. "Overlord, won't you stay for a few more days? Or has my Yun family failed to provide hospitality?" He tried his best to retain Kang Chon, hoping to draw more into the relationship between their Yun family and Kang Chon. On the side, the two Yun family sisters also looked at Kang Chon with affection, and Yun Shuiao's eyes were filled with ghostly resentment, looking at Kang Chon with creepy. Senior is overly concerned. I think Senior also knows that the Heavenly Dao Sect's disciple acceptance ceremony is about to begin, and Senior must rush to the imperial capital before then. Kang Chon hurriedly shook his head, jokingly. He didn't want to continue staying here.